Praveen has kind of touched upon all the key buzzwords, festival, inclusion, and sustainability. There are two more words that I kind of liked as part of our theme. One was resilience, another one was global collaboration. And it's a global fintech festival, like Praveen said. We have now speakers, and we expect people from more than 100 countries to participate in this festival. So there is a very large work that will happen around global collaborations. This is regulator to regulator, companies to companies, and fintechs to fintech, right? So that's the nature of what we have in mind. Second is resilience, and we are coming through a big economic shift, and this economic shift has made fintechs also vulnerable to what's happening. So there is a theme around resilience. How do you build resilience in the fintech ecosystem? Best practices globally, how do you learn from them? So some of these themes are also going to be discussed through workshops, through events, through keynote speaks, and of course interactions that we will have with more than 100 country delegates. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say.
No, thank you. I think you must have got a flavor of how these sessions we have thought about designing. One is about the coverage. Otherwise, I think basically the entire festival, when we bring the participants together from around the world, is about three things: discover, debate, and then you decide. So we hope that once over this 3-day event, these things will happen. And once you get the complete list of sessions that we are going to handle, you will find these topics quite wide ranging. In fact, from showcasing innovation to regulation. The regulators are a very important part of this. How the innovation and regulation goes together is something that people often ask, but you will find it in the Global Fintech Festival, because a lot of regulatory participation is going to be there. Discussing financial inclusion, as has been stated. So the FI and the transformation to AI, which is the artificial intelligence, and how that is going to help this industry. That is going to be some sessions are dedicated towards that. You will have the latest about the CBDC. Then we are going to facilitate the mentors having conversation with the startups. Now we are going to have a number of sessions on ESG, the growing importance and role of women in this ecosystem. Now the purpose or the aim that we have set for ourselves is that India should achieve the global thought leadership in these matters. I think Naveen briefly alluded to his initial thoughts. Would you like to elaborate on that?
So it looks quite academic, right? At times you say, okay, I want to be the largest. It's like, okay, I want to be the first rank holder. Right? Why is it important for our country? So if I go back to my own experience when I was in the operating side of the fintech, right? About 2000 onwards, 23 years plus. Every time when you had to understand what is happening across the globe, the best, right? You would go and find that which are the events, which are the activities, which are the large gathering of the ecosystem that is happening. And we realized largely those platforms were outside India. One in US, one in Europe, one somewhere in Asia. And every time I realized that even if you go there, it does not do any justice to what you really need as in a country. Because if you see a couple of those countries, the demography there, the needs there versus India is extremely difficult. In fact, all three places where currently such activities were happening, which were so-called the largest, the requirement, and they were all catering to solutions of the top 20% of the world, right, the population, which are already included. So when it comes to excluded population, where the real need is required, probably India is one of the largest such country representing that audience, had no real model to look at. And if you now look back and see that what has happened in India in last 1.5 decades in terms of how digital India was pursued, how digital identity was driven, how the whole payments around UPI has happened, it became evidently clear that we need to create and bring about complete new technology, new model and new ways of thinking. And that is what has separated you. And we already have an example with NPCI that because you did a different thing, which is a fast payment, which was a new area, you became a leader, you created a thought leadership. Today we are undisputed leader. Now, like that, there are multiple other tracks that are working, whether it's account aggregator, the recently announced by RBI, transparent credit dissemination policy, right, and the framework. On the other hand, if you look at the traditional financial services, it took us literally 77 years, if I'm not wrong, of the number of independent years, right? to even become one amongst top 10 largest bank from the country. Of course, finally that has happened in this year, so that's a big achievement. But how many years it took? If I look at the same thing in an insurance segment, our largest insurance probably is around $40 billion market cap. You look at the world's largest, it's about 10x bigger than that. So we do know that while traditional we are catching up, the reality is that one, that may not necessarily suit the requirement of rest of the population where the opportunity lies. And again, if you see the top 3 ecosystems, we're already third largest. And if you look at other 2 larger ones, China and US, the ecosystem there is pretty stagnant. The growth is not much. The population is mostly included. While we have a country where the demand is extremely high, other than banking and payments, every other service, the penetration is still in a single digit. So it clearly says that this is the time India needs to take lead. And just when we have started, every area that we are getting in, we're ending up lending becoming big. Now for our leadership to showcase, we need a one particular event, activity, place where the entire world can converge and we can benefit from each other's knowledge. And again, our idea of reaching out to all of you, because you are very much part of this ecosystem. All of you cover these financial services, knowledge dissemination. So like we are bringing every other ecosystem partner, this is to interact with you and see how we could interact with you a lot more better, probably in so many, let's say in a 6-month, the content that you create on this BFSI and a fintech segment, probably you have an opportunity to create that in 3 days. The number of people, and you will see more details about the event, that opportunity that lies for you to interact, disseminate that information to the relevant ecosystem, and also bring your thought process into the system to influence. And ultimately, what do we want to be better or larger? So that the entire ecosystem in the country and the world benefits, right? It's all about prosperity ultimately. Ultimately, goal is also for us to be a developed nation. That is also signed when everybody respects you as a nation, right? And that's what we are looking at. And this is a very important pillar. So sometimes it looks academic, why a thought leadership. So that's why I've taken some extra time to elaborate. And I'm sure all of you will help us achieve that dream with you covering the right content, right details, and positioning this entire work that we're doing in India and showcasing it to the world. You want to add anything, Vasu?
I think the event is coming at a very critical time in terms of what's happening in the world. You've all seen how the world is changing in terms of the tech scenario and the funding scenario. So a common platform like an event like this, where there is going to be common aggregation of all people, the companies, investment capital providers, regulators and policymakers. It's a great platform for sharing of knowledge that will happen, sharing of experiences that happen, and therefore how are companies leveraging technology, how are companies dealing with the current times. Inputs will get shared across the various constituents on what can be done better, how is each country learning from somebody else. In the context of retail payments, which are for small value and inclusiveness, India is obviously way ahead of the rest of the world. And this is a great platform for others to learn from us and for us to learn from them on scaling and other issues and in dealing with time like this. So we're all looking forward to the what the platform has to offer.